COVID variants coming to Colorado. They tell us something about how long we'll be dealing with the virus. Videos from inside the Capitol insurrection tell us something about the complete lack of remorse from the Coloradans who stoked the insurrectionist mob. As the state expands who can get the vaccine, one hospital system says, hold on, we're not finished with the highest risk Coloradans. Getting a taste of industrial snow, fresh from the refinery. Or maybe not. And buckle up. It's time to take your word of thanks campaign to a part of Colorado we haven't visited. Get ready to do some good together, because this is next. The variants of the COVID-19 virus showing up in Colorado are not a surprise. They do give us an idea of how long the virus is going to be part of our lives around here. Let's dive right in tonight with this from Anusha Roy.
So far, the state has detected nearly 60 COVID variant cases.
In Colorado, have not seen any sort of significant growth in one of these variants causing disease in the state.
The state says the vaccines offer protection against the strains found in Colorado so far, and health experts say they expected these variants to show up.
Naturally copies itself. It's like handwriting, and so it's literally printing it out. At some point, it'll make a mistake, and the 100th time it copies itself, that mistake just gets perpetuated. And sometimes that's meaningful and sometimes it's not.
The virus has to become more creative in order to continue to propagate it.
Before we go any further, doctors want to get one thing really clear.
Vaccine has more than zero. So even if they're not perfect against these variants, it still seems to allow some level of protection.
The state said it would be most concerned if variants chipped away at the vaccine effectiveness and kept infecting people.
We really aren't seeing that right now with the B117 variant. There has been some of those concerns with some of the other variants that are circulating across the globe, specifically the variant that has been causing and identified in South Africa, and also a variant that has been identified in Brazil. But at this point, those variants have not been identified in Colorado.
This is so important as we look to the future.
It tells us that COVID is something that we'll probably be living with for many, many years to come. Obviously, the hope is that the degree of infection that it causes over time will lessen, and then with the impact of vaccine, it'll become sort of in the background.
Now that variants are here.
And I think that is yet to be determined, but it would not surprise me if in the fall we're talking about boosting or vaccinating with a newer version of the vaccine.
So I just want to touch on that last point real quickly, that Dr. Barron is saying from her vantage point as an infectious disease specialist, a booster shot or a vaccine that's a little bit tweaked, it's already on her radar just to keep up with COVID-19 and what's happening with it. It is why her, and along with every other doctor I talked to today, said once again, this is why it is so important for people to just keep up their COVID precautions and not let their guard down.
Anusha, it feels like the virus started mutating like as soon as we got our hands around it. Is that typical?
Yeah, okay, so I asked that exact same question because I was feeling the same way, right? Every virus is going to have its own timeline, and Dr. Barron said what happened with this particular virus is actually kind of what she expected, but everybody's sense of time is just weird over the last year, but also we've had researchers around the globe all focus on the exact same thing, Kyle, and then it's just been pumping out information. So it's a lot for people to keep up with.
This conversation reminded me of a viewer email from a woman named Diane Wright. I actually pulled it up during your story. Diane Wright was wondering whatever happened to the 1918 pandemic flu. I looked this up earlier in the week. So Diane, for anybody else that's interested, that flu just kind of mutated, and parts of it are still around, scientists say, to this day. Anusha, thank you so much. We all learned today just how close some Coloradans who were in the mob storming the Capitol got to getting their hands on other Coloradans working inside the Capitol on January 6th, meaning members of Congress and their staffs. Images of Congressman Jason Crow's column under fire, protecting fellow members of the House, those were entered into the official record of former President Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate today, as was new video, like that of heroic Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman running past Senator Mitt Romney, telling him he needed to turn around to get to safety from the mob. And newly released security video of then Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer being hustled down a hallway by security, only to turn and run in the other direction because they were about to encounter insurrectionists who were chanting about killing American leaders. Seeing those new videos of how close the insurrectionist mob came to capturing and killing members of Congress to stop the election certification, it reminds us of what we have not seen. We have not seen one bit of remorse or reflection from the Coloradans who stoked the insurrectionist fantasy of overturning the election. Colorado's Jenna Ellis, the president's legal advisor, mocked today's proceedings as political theater. No regret either from conservative leaders Michelle Malkin and Joe Oltmann, who faced lawsuits for spreading the conspiracy theory that Dominion voting systems based out of Denver rigged the election. Colorado's RNC National Committee man and 710 KNUS radio host Randy Corcoran has just doubled down on his election rigging conspiracy theories. Our state's Republican Party chairman, Ken Buck, has expressed zero remorse about trying to get the election results thrown out. Same for Congressman Doug Lamborn. Congressman Lauren Boebert has shrugged off concerns that she tweeted about the location of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi while the Capitol was being stormed, on the very day that Boebert had primed the insurrectionists saying, "Today is 1776. Do you think perhaps privately those Coloradans saw those sickening images of police officers beaten and crushed by the mob and that they felt remorse about whipping that crowd into a frenzy with the big lie? No, I don't think so either. Let's return to the state of COVID-19 in our state. Hospitalizations ticked up slightly today by 8 patients, up to 472. We're still down almost 50 patients from where we were this time last week. 9.9% of Coloradans, 570-some people, have received their first dose of the vaccine. Of that 9.9%, you got that smaller piece of the pie, 4.2%. Those are the people who have both doses. It's been 3 days now since the state opened the door to a larger group of people now eligible to get the vaccine. As of Monday, people 65 plus and those who work in schools are eligible. Of course, we caution, just because you're eligible does not mean that you can expect to get an appointment in the vaccine anytime soon. Our Steve Steger talked to one small hospital system that decided they're actually going to formalize holding off a bit, Steve, to continue working on vaccinating the high-risk 70-plus population.
Yeah, and Kyle, there are a few hospital systems across the state and vaccine providers who are doing this, essentially saying to the 65 and up community, hold on for a little bit until we get into a comfortable place with those 70 and up. The state has told providers that they still should prioritize those 70 up. Let's start all of this with a conversation of where we stand county by county in the metro area. Denver County is halfway there, 50.5%. The Tri-County Health Department, Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas counties, they're at 48.6%. Boulder's at 60%. Jeffco 52.7%. Broomfield 43.8%. And Larimer County 54.3%. So as you can see, Boulder leads vaccination rates in people 70 plus. There are about 30,000 of them in Boulder County. This weekend, Boulder Community Health sent out an email to patients letting them know that they would not be starting the process of vaccinating people in that 65 to 69 range just yet. Said that they had too many people left in that 70 plus population yet to vaccinate. So the CEO, Dr. Robert Vissers, told me the decision had everything to do with vaccine supply and not wanting to guess when they might have enough.
We could have opened it up now, except for that we just would have been scheduling you 3 weeks in the future with less certainty that we had a vaccine for you. So it's for us, it's working well to go week to week. We are a smaller system dealing with a generally smaller population. So we have that luxury and flexibility. Like I said, so far, we've not had to cancel a clinic.
So the good news here, he now says that people 65 and up will be able to start at Boulder Community Health next week. He says right now his system's doing about 700 to 800 vaccines a day. They could double that and do a whole lot more if they had more supply of the vaccine. The state's goal is to have 70% of people in that 70 plus population vaccinated by the end of February. And today, Scott Bookman told reporters that he's the incident commander for CDPHE. He told reporters they're about 73% of the way there, almost halfway through vaccinating all people 70 up in Colorado.
Sticking to the plan. Pretty logical. All right, Steve Steger, he's live. He's not a cat. Thank you, Steve. We're getting some feedback tonight from viewers asking for your word of thanks micro-giving campaign to finally make a stop on the Western Slope. All right, let's do it. Let's do something else. Let's triple your impact by helping 3 small nonprofits in Western Colorado all at once. They all focus on what's a really serious issue there, the high rate of youth suicide. This week's Word of Thanks campaign features a custom-made fund just for Next viewers, so you can have an impact across 4 different counties. The Western Colorado Community Foundation is calling this Western Slope Try, Together for Resilient Youth. Your donations this week will be split amongst 3 nonprofits that all use outdoor adventures in Colorado as the pathway to mentoring and counseling youth who are at risk for suicide and other destructive behavior. Friends of Youth is a nonprofit in Montrose and Delta counties, does work with kids in foster care who have survived trauma to build confidence and resilience skills. Gear Up is a nonprofit that does mentoring for middle schoolers in Mesa County disguised as a mountain biking program. It gets young people to set goals early in life, to stay out of trouble, and not to get discouraged. And Youth Zone is another nonprofit that works with young people in Garfield County, rifle and parachute specifically. These are typically kids who have been in some trouble and need guidance to get back on the right track in life. I realize that was a whole lot to throw at you at once, but we have this opportunity to have a huge impact across the Western Slope this week for kids who are having mental health challenges. These are groups that are out there intervening before more sons and daughters are lost to suicide. The Western Colorado Community Foundation is going to divide all of our donations 3 ways. Not only are they not taking any fees and overhead for doing this, they are going to seed your Word of Thanks campaign that they just built for us with the first $5,000 donation. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. We'll send you that link to donate. Of course, like every week, I'll match the first 50 donations of $50. Thank you for that feedback. The Word of Thanks giving train needed to roll through the Western Slope. So let's make a difference several times over, from Mesa to Garfield to Montrose to Delta counties this week. Your friendly local refinery helped kick up a little snowstorm over Denver this morning. So just how safe is that yummy emissions snow?
Several of the nurses in the ICU said, "This is your lucky day."
He wouldn't be here right now if not for the quick action of complete strangers. Thank you for his angels. Next.
First the cold and then the snow. We'll have light accumulating snow by the weekend, but between now and then, we're just going to watch cold temperatures well below the average of 45, with the coldest air to move in on Friday. But we've also got moisture coming in from the west. Winter weather and travel advisories will be reinstated for accumulating snow in the high country tomorrow. Denver's got a chance at seeing some light accumulation starting Friday night. Between now and then, it's all about the fog and freezing fog, with light accumulation for us over the weekend. And so, as we take a look at Denver's forecast for tonight, a chilly night, partly cloudy, a low of 8. Areas of icy fog tomorrow morning, then some clearing. Cold air settles in with weekend high temperatures in the teens and overnight low temperatures well below 0.
So somebody on social media just called this the most Colorado thing they've seen today. But again, your overwhelming generosity has crashed a Word of Thanks donation page. The page is fine. It's just a volume issue. There's a ton of people trying to get on at the same time to give to those nonprofits on the Western Slope. Please be patient. Please keep trying. Keep crashing websites. The snow in Denver this morning was a little bit unique. It was forming so close to the ground, the weather radar had trouble picking it up, except in one place, right next to the Suncor oil refinery in Commerce City. And there's a word for this. They call this industrial snowfall. When the burning of something at a plant adds heat to the air, causes it to rise and condense, water vapor then falls. So this just like nature intended, only with a refinery. I was curious if the snow is safe, so we asked our meteorologist, Corey Reppenhagen.
Yeah, if you happen to catch one of those industrial-aided snowflakes on your tongue this morning, you're going to be just fine. In fact, you may be surprised to know that all snowflakes have some sort of pollution particle at its core. They're called condensation nuclei, and snow in Colorado can't form without them. Now, the EPA has standard levels for all pollution that they consider unsafe for human consumption, and our snow today did not exceed those levels, but our air did. The Colorado Health Department issued an air quality alert because the inversion that trapped all those clouds over the city also trapped all of our pollution. So the air was actually more unhealthy than the snow.
Last week, he collapsed on a treadmill. He wasn't moving till strangers acted fast.
When he let out that big breath, I mean, all of us let out a big breath.
The story of saving a life and the thank you that followed. Next. The right people, the right training, the right time. It all came together to save a life at a fitness center in Aurora recently.
I don't remember anything. Now, everything that I've heard today from my three angels is brand new to me.
It started as a regular day. I had been here for about 30 minutes. I heard a loud noise, and one of my other members yelled for help.
Everybody was kind of just standing there looking at this member on the ground, and I couldn't tell what was going on, but it only took me a few seconds to realize that he wasn't breathing at that time.
I remember he was looking purple. To me, he was already starting to look black. So that's when I was like, oh man, we're losing him.
So I started administering CPR, chest compressions, and rescue breaths.
But none of that was working. And so I immediately grabbed our AED and I said, guys, we have to use this.
I said, okay, we have to do it. And that's when I got into action. I set those patches in his chest and shocked him.
When he let out that big breath, I mean, all of us let out a big breath.
Again, I mean, it was a big sigh of relief, I think, all around the room. Everybody started breathing again.
Yes, that's exactly how it felt.
My first memory of anything was talking to my wife in intensive care, and that was it. It started to sink into me when I heard several of the nurses in the ICU say, "This is your lucky day. You really lucked out today." They pulled together to save somebody that they barely knew, other than maybe an acquaintance walking into the gym. You can't put it in words when somebody saves your life, like those three saved mine. I mean, what do you say to somebody like that? Thank you is not enough.
It gives me as a gym owner a huge moment of pride about our gym and knowing that our members take care of each other.
You know, it's the second family.
We're all members of a big family, and sometimes there's people who truly care about other members of that family, just as my three angels did for me. So that's the way I look at them.
Maricela told our photojournalist Foster Gaines she does have a formal CPR and AED training. She got it as a teacher for Cherry Creek Schools. So you all told us to go up and over the Continental Divide with your donations for this week's Word of Thanks. You did not tell me that you intended to break the internet again while doing it. I keep hitting refresh. You should too. Next. You asked for some love for our neighbors on the West Slope, Best Slope for Word of Thanks, and you are clearly over-delivering as you have crashed the website. It worked for me a second ago, and then not just right now. All your donations this week are going to be divided among 3 nonprofits that work to prevent youth suicide in Western Colorado, a serious issue there. So you got Youth Zone, Gear Up, and Friends of Youth and Nature. They all use outdoor adventure as a way to get counseling and mentoring toward young people who are at risk. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, send you that link to join me in donating. Western Colorado Community Foundation will split up the donations fee-free, and they're starting it out with $5,000. Really, really cool. Amy writes in tonight to inquire whether Corey Reppenhagen is single. He's not, Amy. He's married. I don't shop in that aisle, but I certainly understand why you might.